Hello and welcome to your weekly astrology forecast. I'm your host, Laura Chung. How was your eclipse story? That was a gnarly solar eclipse in Virgo. Um, Before the eclipse perfected, the sun was opposite Saturn. So, what I personally witnessed was a lot of people confronting somebody, having boundaries with somebody. And yeah, the energies were really tense. I'm not going to lie. And the advice I would have for you this week is to be very careful and to protect your energy. Um, like I'm not a fear mongerer. I'm of the person that is always like, I want to know the weather, like if it's going to rain, if it's going to snow, like I know how to prepare my outfit. I know how to prepare myself. Astrology is the same way. You want to prepare yourself for the energies that are at play. And you want to take caution when you know something is going to go down or possibly can go down versus when the energies are more conducive to um, like a fun time. This is a gnarly week, I'm not going to lie. So I would take this week to be very mindful, to pay attention to your surroundings, to pay attention to your energy, to your body, protect your energy. This is a time to, yeah, be just super vigilant. Um, because, well, we'll get into that in a moment. But I guess the recap really was this week that was culminating into this solar eclipse moment. I'm actually recording this 3 hours after the eclipse, and so I'm still feeling this energy. On September 17th, Jimmy Kimmel was canceled, like indefinitely from his show, and on the same day that this happened, Mercury in Virgo was opposite Saturn retrograde in Pisces at 28 degrees. And this was right before the solar eclipse in Virgo. Now, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And so broadcasting, communication, and opposing Saturn is a planet of no, like, we're not doing this anymore. And this is also coming off the heels of Stephen Colbert being canceled by his network. And so, like, yes, there's censorship, right? But I think the nature of broadcast news and how we receive information is going to change. And if you go back to our July monthly forecast with Stephanie Campos, we mentioned that the last time Uranus was in the sign of Gemini, this was when nightly news became a regular thing. And so now with the return of Uranus in Gemini, this is now we're going to see nightly news and the way that news is presented maybe in a different way. And since Uranus is in retrograde, this is like the pulling back of traditional news. These legacy media outlets are clearly propaganda broadcasting stations, and censorship is just going to be more of a thing. And also this week, Oracle bought TikTok. And so if you live in the United States, then you're going to have to download a separate version of TikTok. And so TikTok is essentially is going to have US American data centers. And so this is further censoring our information and what we get to say, what we get to see on social media. Now, I did Amanda Seal's show earlier this year, I think January of 2025, and I mentioned that all of the transits we are going through now are repeating cycles. Now, history and astrology don't repeat, but they rhyme. And so during the last time Neptune was in the sign of Aries, we had all of these, we had the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, right, post Civil War. And now some of those things are being rolled back. Did I mention this last week? That, in the big, beautiful bill, in the big beautiful bill, there was the jurisdiction around birthright citizenship, and birthright citizenship came about in the 14th Amendment. And so now, with Neptune being retrograde in Aries, they're rolling these things back. And the freedom of speech was ratified in the Bill of Rights. So all of these human rights, these laws that used to protect us, that we just knew to be true for us, were actually more vulnerable than we thought they were. So I did Amanda's show. I went back on her show September 10th. We spoke for an hour. I did like a recap of all of the outer planet transits and what we are currently going through now. I spoke at an event yesterday called Soul Space that we do. It's a mutual aid event here in New York City. And I didn't really talk about the outer planet transits because I was just kind of like, we're in the revolution. Like, we're in this moment, right? So my talk was now making it more personal to people. Like, what is your role in collective liberation? Because the question I always get is like, what am I supposed to do? What can I do? Because not everybody actually can be at the front lines using their bodies, right? So how can we pinpoint in our natal charts? How can we see like what is our role? And also I referenced Deepa Iyer's social change map. And some of our archetypes, well, she doesn't call them roles for collective liberation, but I'm workshopping this idea around roles for collective liberation based on your astrology. And I workshopped them yesterday. And so hopefully I can get it more refined, and I can like share it more formally in like a longer form video here and share it with my Patreon community first. So thank you all to the Patreon community. Thank you for supporting this weekly astrology forecast. And you all know who you are. Thank you so much for supporting this work. And thank you for the monthly astrology, the North Node tier, where you get your monthly astrology horoscopes for your sign. I just finished all of them. And so next week, I'm going to be in Scotland. So I'm not sure I'm going to be doing the forecast for next week, which will be the end of September to the beginning of October. But don't fear, I will talk about the full moon. Well, the astrology forecast when I come back will include the full moon, but I will do a little recap of like what happened in the forecast that I'm not going to be able to do. But yeah, I want to take a like break. I want to take a vacation. I'm going to Scotland with my sister, and it's her birthday trip. So I'm following this Virgo around, and I'm going to just try to enjoy myself and not work. And also because starting October 6th, I am teaching a 12-week class on how to read your natal chart. There's still time to register if you want to. So I'm really going to try to like relax and not work. So there's not going to be a forecast for next week. Heads up. But again, thank you all. I love your comments. I love when you share, and I read all of them. I might not have time to respond to all of them, but I do read them. Okay. So let's do the forecast on September 22nd. So let me paint this picture for you. We had a solar eclipse on Sunday. This is a new moon. It was at the anaretic degree, which is the final degree of a sign. Mars was at the anaretic degree in Libra. And the full moon was opposing, it was separating an opposition to Saturn in Pisces. So there was some sort of confrontation or conflict or some boundary setting, right? And a purging that needed to happen because it's a South Node eclipse. And so with this new moon, it is a new moon, so it is a new beginning, and the events will unfold for 6 months. And for me personally, this was happening in my 10th house of career and public persona. And I really like pushed in the month of September. Like, this is what I'm doing. Astrology. I'm a synthesizer of culture, of history, of astrology, of spirituality, and I try to make it uh simple to digest. That's what Virgo is, right? So that was on Sunday, and then Monday Mars will change signs into Scorpio in its domicile. And Mars and Scorpio, I love Mars and Scorpio personally. Um, it is very intense. It is determined. It is ambitious. It is focused. Yes, it can get to a place of obsession. And oftentimes, like, it can't get out of its fixed nature, right? Because Scorpio is a fixed water sign. This is a great time to do deep research and really get like focused on something. So look at where your Scorpio house is, and Mars will be transiting there. Mars is the planet of like action and doing something, but it's in a nocturnal, feminine sign of Scorpio. So this is going to be, being more quiet, being more focused. But I love this energy. Mars and Scorpio for me is like orca energy. It's very strategic, very silent, moves stealthily, and on the same day, this is the equinox. So there's a lot of energy happening this week. We had that eclipse. And by the way, have any of you been watching Bon Appetit, Your Majesty? I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. I love the lead actor. He's like a tyrant king. He plays a tyrant king, but his gaze is so Scorpio to me. Like his gaze and his eye movements, and you can tell how he feels by the way that he looks. Oh my gosh. But at the beginning of that show, it happens around a solar eclipse. And my people, we are very superstitious people. Like, you don't look at the solar eclipse, you try not to do anything um at the solar eclipse, and the main character, she like reads this ancient recipe book that's clearly laced with magic, and then she gets transported back into the Joseon dynasty, the Joseon era. Anyway, I'm obsessed with it, and so I'm going to do this forecast and watch the latest episode. But anyway, so after the eclipse, we have Mars, a personal planet, moving into its domicile, and then we have the sun moving into Libra, and this is the equinox. Okay, when the sun goes into a cardinal sign at the world point at 0 degrees, this is like a lot of energy moving at once. We went from anaretic degrees, like the final degree of the sun and the moon and Mars, and now moving into the 0 degree, the beginning. This is like a new beginning of something. Something is changing. There was an ending and a beginning all at once. And it does feel like a timeline shift, to be honest with you. So the equinox, this is equal light and day. The sun is in its fall in the sign of Libra. So we're entering the fall officially here in the Northern Hemisphere, and the spring in the Southern Hemisphere. And yeah, I like to do something special on this day in equinox. And I'm going to be doing my astrology final exam tomorrow, like all day before packing. On September 23rd, so the very next day, the sun in Libra will oppose Neptune retrograde in Aries at 0 degrees. So again, the sun and Neptune are at world points, and they're in an opposition. An opposition is a 180-degree angle. It's one of the 5 Ptolemaic aspects in astrology. And the opposition is a conflict one. It's dicey. I mean, that's what a full moon is, right? It's a opposition. So the sun in Libra, right? This is the sun. You're focused on relating, relationships, balance and harmony. And it's opposing Neptune, which is in Aries, where the sun has this exaltation. So you could be feeling some type of way. Like, you could be feeling like, oh God, Um, depending on where your Aries and Libra houses are, right? You could be feeling like, um, okay, be careful on this day because this is a day where you could feel confused or some type of information that's coming out is not what it seems. Okay, this is why I said in the beginning of this video to be mindful of what you watch, and it's so important that we during this time of revolution and change that we actually harness more of our spiritual gifts, like our psychic abilities, our intuitive abilities, listening to our gut, because they're going to be lying to us. They're going to be throwing all sorts of people under the bus. They're going to be, the empire is crumbling. They're losing the plot line. Neptune is the lore and the myth. And the United States in the Sibley chart has Neptune in Virgo in the 10th house. So the American dream, right? And that illusion of the American dream, that veil is being lifted, and people are seeing the United States of America for what it is. And so, because of that, they're doubling down now on the propaganda. So, this day, you could have just like, you're not really sure. They're saying something's happening, but really, like, it doesn't make any sense. And people are getting smarter about things. People are doing the research. People are, more skeptical of the government now more than ever, but this is a world point. So like I said, some news might come out and you're just like, I don't know about that. But personally, in your own personal life, this could have something to do with your relationships. This could have whatever your Libra and Aries houses are, right? So just look out for that signature. On the same day, the sun in Libra will trine Uranus retrograde in Gemini at 1 degree. And the very next day on September 24th, the sun in Libra will trine to Pluto in Aquarius at 1 degree. So between the 23rd and the 24th, we have a grand air trine between the sun, Gemini, the sun in Libra, Uranus in Gemini, and Pluto in Aquarius. And this same thing happened like a month ago. And I don't know if you remember what happened during that recap was when oh my god, now it's like blinking in my head. They did something where it's when Meta launched the Maps feature on Instagram. And so it was a feature where people could track your location. Because ultimately trines are of our harmonious nature, but try to get out of the binary thinking of like, this is only good things, right? Because trines make things happen easily. So the US government obviously uses an astrologer. I believe that. And they use magic. And so they could be using these energies for nefarious reasons. Like, let's track these people. Like, I mean, they are already, come on. But on this day, something with technology, something with surveillance, something with AI could be coming out and them just trying to censor and control us even more. And then September 24th, on the same day of that trine, while that trine perfects, Mars and Scorpio will square Pluto in Aquarius at 1 degree. This is like in the worst case scenario, this is a terror attack. This is a murder. This is an assassination. This is it's quite violent. And I say this just because of the patterns of Mars square Pluto. When in October of 2023, Mars in Libra was square to Pluto in Capricorn around the solar eclipse in Libra, that is when Israel quotes had the right to defend itself against children. I don't know, like everybody is HMAS, everybody, right? So after October 7th, the Al-Aqsa flood, then Israel had manufactured consent to then invade and besiege Gaza. So that signature I've seen now multiple times to be a very violent signature. Mars is the god of war, and Mars is well resourced in its domicile in the sign of Scorpio. And Pluto is the god of the underworld. This is death. Okay. So when Mars is in a contentious conflict aspect like the square with Pluto, this is like, yeah, and so the scenario that I'm gonna like feel into here, because like I wrote this on Threads, and then I might have said this in a video, but conspiracy theory is used to gaslight us, the people who have a keen sense of pattern recognition and can connect the dots. And maybe that's how my neurodivergent brain works, but I'm like a very suspicious person. And I just track, maybe it's because of my trauma. I just can track people's patterns. And then I spoke about this yesterday at Soul Space, and Logan, who is another astrologer, and they are a witch and they practice tarot, and their Instagram is Focus and Infinity. They're amazing. They said that there is a CIA document essentially admitting that conspiracy theory is a word to describe, to basically gaslight us. So the scenario that I'm seeing here is after the eclipse, right? Everybody's like, we're all exhausted, we're all drained. We have genocide fatigue, we have climate crisis fatigue. Like, there's just so many things going on. And they do this purposely to dysregulate our nervous system. And that's easier for them to control us, and also for us to get into despair. So with the sun opposing Neptune and that grand air trine, and with Mars square Pluto, they can be, some attack or something happens in a violent way to dysregulate our nervous system, to create a false flag or manufacture consent for them then to invade some place or to create another proxy war somewhere. This is like something that they've done over and over again. This is like their MO. So I'm just saying, like, be very mindful of the information that you listen to, be vigilant, do your research, do your due diligence, and don't take everything at face value right away. You want to make sure that you're looking into things. Also in your personal life, like, you could just be getting like scammed by somebody. Somebody's taking advantage of your empathy and your good-natured heart. I know a lot of my friends are genuinely like good people. Like, they want to help people in Gaza, they want to help people in the Congo and Sudan, and some of them are getting scammed. And then in your own personal life, the Mars in Scorpio square to Pluto and Aquarius, like, look at where your Scorpio and your Aquarius whole sign houses are. Those two are coming into this contentious aspect. And Mars in Scorpio, when it triggers Pluto, this could be like old wounding, old trauma coming up to the surface. And the best way to use this energy is to first regulate your nervous system however you need to regulate. Not everybody can just like sit and like meditate. Some people literally need to like punch something, like punch a pillow, go to the boxing ring. I was really into boxing last fall, screaming, getting that energy out, right? But Mars in Scorpio is an alchemizer. It's able to take the trauma and it's able to take the wounding and alchemize it into power. Because at the end of the day, Mars in Scorpio and Pluto in Aquarius, when they are used in a conscious way, is about like reclaiming your power, standing up to your abuser, naming the abuser and being like, not today, Satan, not today. This is such a great day too, like, to do some kind of healing work, doing some kind of shadow work. Oh my gosh, there's a little animal in my front yard. But again, for this week, I would just be really mindful in who you are in relation with, and trying not to get into these like explosive situations, because September 24th specifically, like if you're planning to go to a protest, if you are planning to do a direct action, just be mindful that this signature, there could be a lot of violence. Okay. A lot of people go into protest situations. I've been to many protests where they're going into it already with a trigger response. Like they are not regulated. So of course, like when you're in those situations, you can't like your frontal lobe doesn't like, it's like your critical thinking shuts down and you just try to survive. And these ICE agents, these cops, these like people with guns, they are dysregulated people too. Like they pick these people for a reason. So I'm just saying, like, be really careful. Don't get yourself into a harmful situation. Have a plan, have a protest buddy, have an escape route, protect your body. And if you are, um, like, if you have a marginalized body, like if you are Black, trans, or brown, or indigenous, like, just please be careful. Maybe consider taking this week off, like, ask your white bodied friend to take your place or something like that. This is where white co-conspirators can really step in and use your bodies in the front lines. Because yeah, this is just, I just wanted to like prep everyone for this week because um while while this energy can be used in a intentional and purposeful way, there's so many people out there that are just running on their trauma response. So that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about your safety in this with other people and like them not being able to regulate themselves. So that is the weekly astrology for this week. Again, just as a reminder, I'm not going to be doing the week after that, the week of September 29th, which is the last week of September into October. And I will see you in 2 weeks. So please take care of yourself and bye.